It was revealed that the protagonist, Yuta Tanho, had experienced a past that made him realize he should not trust anyone easily. He had always been the one to pay the price whenever girls were kind to him. Being a high school boy, he no longer trusted girls because he had been deceived many times. The girls often took advantage of him by getting close as if they were interested in him, but in reality, they were only pretending while actually targeting his older brother. Because of this, Yuta had decided to stop trusting them altogether. One day, as he was walking down the school corridor, a girl greeted him with a good morning. However, Yuta did not like her and kept ignoring her greetings. Despite this, she continued to say, "Good morning," which annoyed Yuta to the point where he shouted at her to stop. The girl responded by saying she hadn't been able to hear his reply clearly. Eventually, Yuta reluctantly returned her greeting, still feeling annoyed, and she simply smiled before leaving. This encounter left Yuta feeling flustered as he tried to calm himself. He thought the girl's name was Izumi Huju, a classmate who had been approaching him frequently lately. She was very cute and seemed like a perfect match for his older brother, who was in the 3rd year. Yuta suspected that she might actually be interested in his brother rather than him. Izumi had been walking with a girl when, all of a sudden, she turned towards Yuta and asked what kind of bread he liked. Yuta was really shocked and wondered why she was asking him such a question. He replied that he liked melon bread. After that, Izumi started walking away, and the girl poked her, telling her that they should swing by the cafeteria now because they would surely have melon bread there. Yuta didn't understand what they wanted and thought that they were really throwing him off. Later, during volleyball class, a boy called out to Yuta and mentioned that Izumi was really cute. Yuta wondered if that boy truly thought so because he could never tell what Izumi was thinking. However, Yuta thought that mysterious vibe was part of her charm. Not only was Izumi cute, but she was also very good at her studies and sports. Yuta watched as Izumi tried to pull off a play, and then he saw her asking for the ball to be passed, seemingly planning to score from there. Still, he felt she wouldn't succeed, and indeed, she did not. Yet, she looked very pleased with herself afterward. The boy repeated that Izumi was really cute and smiled a little, but Yuta wondered what exactly the boy had been watching. The boy mentioned that Yuta was clearly looking at Izumi as well, but Yuta quickly blushed and denied that he was. Izumi then turned toward him and gave a smile, which made the other students wonder what was going on between them. As Yuta walked alone, he wondered what Izumi was thinking. She had been confusing him lately, and he couldn't quite figure out her intentions. However, she had never mentioned anything about his older brother, so Yuta wondered if she liked him instead of his brother. Suddenly, she called out to him, and other girls watched the scene, feeling jealous of Izumi because she was really cute and a first-year student. They thought Izumi was just a troublemaker. Then, those students pressured Yuta by pushing him, trying to make him fall. Yuta thought this had always been the case. As far as he could remember, any girl who showed interest in him was actually after his brother. Everyone seemed to know this, and their eyes were always fixed on his brother, who was ahead of him. That was why Yuta could never trust any girl who showed kindness toward him. He believed they were actually interested in his brother. Suddenly, Izumi came over and handed him a handkerchief, telling him he could use it if he wanted to. Yuta wondered why she wasn't going after his brother instead. She turned to look at all the other girls gathered around Yuta's brother and explained that it was because she had already found him. Then, she gave Yuta a gentle smile as she offered him her handkerchief. Yuta, with trembling hands, accepted it and thanked her. She looked at him warmly and asked him to return the handkerchief to her later, mentioning that it was her favorite one. As she walked away, Yuta thought to himself that although she wasn't after his brother, he would not let himself be deceived again. Throughout the school, many girls were interested in Yuta's brother, Rei. 2 girls were talking about Yuta, who was Rei's brother. Since the second girl did not know who Yuta was, he happened to pass by at that moment and was pointed out by the first girl. Yuta felt uncomfortable about this because everyone approached him due to his brother's popularity, which made it difficult for him to trust them. Among all of them, Izumi was the one he disliked the most, as she had been bothering him frequently lately. When Yuta entered the classroom, Izumi greeted him, but he asked her not to welcome him, and pointed out that she was sitting in his seat. She agreed to move slightly, and offered him half of the seat. Shocked, he exclaimed that he would not sit like that. He thought that even in class, many people liked Izumi, and it seemed the only reason anyone talked to him was because of his older brother. While he was writing something, Izumi interrupted by asking if he was writing in his general notebook, to which he appeared confident in his response. Then, another girl came by to remind Yuta that it was time for the math quiz, and he agreed, ignoring Izumi. After one of the tests, Yuta received only 5 out of 50, which left him disappointed. The teacher announced that there would be a retest the next day for those who scored 10 or less. Yuta's friends encouraged him not to stress about the test and reminded him that they didn't understand the pain of getting hit with a surprise exam. 2 of his friends had scored well on the test. One of the boys suggested that Yuta's poor performance might have been because he was talking to Izumi just before the exam. Yuta shouted that this was not true and said he felt like he should go home to study. However, as Yuta was leaving school, he decided against going home and instead went to the library to study, thinking that a change of scenery might help, though he still struggled to understand the material. While solving math problems, Izumi appeared and pointed out where he had made a mistake. Startled, Yuta let out a loud sound and immediately apologized. Izumi continued on as Yuta resumed studying hard. Yuta was surprised to see Izumi in the library, as he had assumed she would be at a cafe or having fun after school. Izumi then sat next to him to read a book, which Yuta noticed was a light novel with a very long title. When she saw him looking at her, she asked what was wrong. Hesitantly, Yuta replied that nothing was wrong and then asked why she was sitting next to him. She replied that she thought he might want someone, as it seemed like he was writing something. Then she asked if it was the quiz from the same day. He then recalled the words of his friend Takamiya, who had said that Izumi was a brilliant student. She had been spacing out while reading that, and did not seem like the type of girl who paid attention in class. She then found his test paper and realized that he had failed the exam. He got annoyed and told her not to do whatever she wanted. Lowering his voice, he asked about her results. She showed him that she had received full marks. Although he tried to ignore it, she kept bringing it up, and he, clearly irritated, muttered in a low voice that she was very persistent. She replied that he was the one who had asked for it, and then offered to teach him where he found things complicated. Looking at him with charming eyes, she expressed her desire to help him, and he agreed. He continued doing his work while she watched him carefully to correct everything. Finally, when he finished and saw the time, it was already past 5 p.m., so he called Izumi. She was busy reading and blushed when he looked at her. She noticed and asked if he was done. He agreed, and asked her to check his answers after she finished reading. She replied that she had already finished long ago. He blushed, wondering if she had been waiting for him to finish, and then he guessed that she was really interested in him, not his brother. She moved closer to check his answers, and mentioned that they were all correct. He felt very awkward when she got that close. Then Izumi received a text from her mother saying she had arrived home, so Izumi left the library as well. A teacher came by and was surprised to see Yuta still there. Yuta was out grocery shopping and noticed that the vegetables were very expensive. He wondered why the prices always seemed to rise whenever he came to buy them, making it so that only wealthy people could afford them. Coincidentally, Izumi was also there to buy vegetables. When she saw Yuta, she acted normally, but Yuta was surprised to see her there. She asked if he had come to buy groceries, and he agreed. He hesitated for a moment, thinking that her casual clothes looked refreshing and that she was very cute. He even considered leaving before she annoyed him. Then, he noticed Izumi's shopping cart and realized what she was looking for. She showed him her shopping list, but Yuta saw that she was buying things not on the list. When he pointed this out, Izumi replied that she wanted to use the leftover money to buy snacks. Yuta told her she had made a mistake with the orders and asked her to put the snacks back. Izumi gave him a strange look, and Yuta wondered why she was making that face, as he could never tell what she was thinking. He decided to accompany her while shopping and refused to buy ice cream because it wasn't on her list. She asked to see the list, but he kept refusing many things she wanted that were not on the list. Finally, Yuta managed to buy Izumi's things, and she thanked him for that. He felt very tired and then let her leave. After that, he began his own shopping, wondering why he had even helped her in the first place. Just then, an auntie approached Yuta and asked if Izumi was his only friend or perhaps his girlfriend. Yuta was shocked and explained that she was just a classmate. The auntie remarked that she had expected something more because they seemed to be having so much fun together, and that was why she assumed they were on a date. Yuta thought about it but noticed that Izumi hadn't smiled even once. He wondered if she only smiled at his brother and decided that he wasn't going to fall for that again. He admitted that he hadn't enjoyed the situation at all. After finishing his shopping and saving some money, Yuta came out and saw that Izumi was still standing outside in the rain because she had forgotten her umbrella. Although he felt it wasn't really his concern, he remembered to help her by offering his handkerchief. Then, he opened his own umbrella to cover her, warning that she might catch a cold otherwise. Izumi asked if he was sure, and when he agreed, they began walking together under the same umbrella. Yuta realized that although he had only intended to lend her his umbrella, it turned out they were walking home together. Yuta wondered what was going on with Izumi because most girls would dislike sharing an umbrella. He accidentally bumped into her and apologized. She smiled and said it was all fine, though it was a bit cramped with two people under one umbrella. Yuta felt that she was very close and remarked that it was a single-person umbrella, so what did she expect? He then started feeling nervous, thinking that maybe she was trying to get on his good side because of the closeness, but it didn't seem like she was actually enjoying being with him. A truck came from ahead, splashing water on the road. To protect Izumi, Yuta quickly stepped in front of her to take the water splash himself. After the truck passed, Izumi asked if he was all right. In response, he asked if she was fine. She replied that she was completely fine and pointed out that since he was using the umbrella, he would have been protected too. Yuta thought that was true, and then tried to use the umbrella to shield them from the rain again. But since water had already collected on the umbrella, it suddenly poured down on both of them. Instead of getting angry, Izumi laughed and asked what he was doing. Feeling bad, Yuta apologized, but she kept laughing, saying it was totally fine, and thanked him for protecting her. He thought Izumi was a strange girl who laughed at the oddest things. As the weather seemed to be clearing up, Izumi suggested that they should head home before they caught a cold. He felt that her gentle smile made him feel something different, and he realized he should watch over her. It was the day when the students' seating arrangement changed, and Yuta found that the person he was most conscious of, Izumi, was sitting next to him. Noticing that he seemed different, she leaned closer and told him to treat her well. Feeling nervous, he agreed and wondered why she was sitting beside him and whether the change of seats was some sort of trap. At the same time, he considered turning that misfortune into an opportunity to learn more about her and finally see through her facade. He noticed that she kept staring at him, so he asked her about it. She answered that she was looking at the mountains through the window behind him, adding that people said gazing at nature from afar was good for them. Yuta thought he had no idea what was on her mind and suspected that she might even be targeting him. He checked her school supplies and saw that they were the complete opposite of his, with a strange item hanging there. Izumi explained that it was called the Laze Dog. Yuta wondered whether it was even popular. Then Izumi teased him, saying it was cute and looked like him. He immediately stood up and denied it. Other students, watching them with cheerful eyes, remarked that it seemed the two of them were having fun. Time passed during school hours, and Yuta realized that he had been going in circles, trying to dig up something about Izumi. He also recalled that most people who ended up sitting next to him usually pestered him for information about his brother, and he kept wondering what Izumi was really thinking. Eventually, he noticed she was wearing glasses and quietly doing her work. As he looked at her, she gave him a side-eye, showing she had noticed his gaze. The teacher continued teaching while Yuta whispered to Izumi, asking if she had poor eyesight. She admitted that she did, though it usually wasn't a problem, but since she was seated far in the back, she needed to wear glasses. Yuta then recalled the mountains she had mentioned earlier. Izumi asked if he could see from there, and he replied that it was easy with his 20/20 vision, adding that when he was little, he often played in places like forests. Yuta then wondered why Izumi chose to sit at the back, despite her weak eyesight. Suddenly, the teacher announced that the next question would go to Yuta. Startled, he stood up nervously, hesitating because he hadn't been paying attention. As he remained silent, Izumi quietly told him that the answer was persistence. Yuta questioned whether she was really giving him the correct answer. When the teacher asked if he had even heard the question, Yuta debated with himself before finally repeating what Izumi had told him. To his surprise, the teacher said his answer was correct and grew so happy that she began dancing. Yuta was stunned, realizing that Izumi hadn't tricked him, and he thanked her. She only smiled in response, making him blush and turn away, wondering why she was looking at him with such an amused expression. He told himself he would only trust her this once. He then suggested that if her eyesight was so bad, she should change seats with someone else. She refused, saying she liked her seat. Yuta grew even more confused, unable to understand her at all. She remembered when the seating arrangement had been made and her place was assigned to the last row. At that time, her friend Morikawa had asked if she was fine with it. Izumi had replied that it was perfectly fine because when she saw that Yuta was sitting next to her, it made her feel happy and gave her face a glow. As the students headed back to board the bus, Morikawa suggested that they should play cards. A boy sitting next to Yuta commented that she had actually brought a real set, and another added that it looked like fun to count them. Izumi asked Yuta if he wasn't going to join. He hesitated, and as the others began teasing him, he asked them not to count him in without his permission. Yuta reflected that this trip was meant to be about outdoor learning, an opportunity to embrace nature and strengthen the class's bond. He had ended up in the group after being called out by Takamiya, but he already felt uneasy. Since he was in the same group as Izumi, he thought it was still better than being stuck with certain other girls, though he quickly shook off that thought. Soon, the cards were handed to him as well, and one of the boys reminded him to pay attention. They were deciding the curry team roles, where the winner would choose whether to cook or gather firewood. Yuta remembered hearing from the teacher that firewood duty was brutal, and he was shocked, thinking that he absolutely had to end up on the cooking side. But at the moment, he couldn't afford to lose. When they finally reached their destination and got off, Yuta found himself collecting firewood with Izumi. He wondered if she had been assigned to the firewood duty as well. She explained that she only came along because he had gotten lost. He pointed out that she had been the second to last to arrive. Everyone continued their tasks, and Yuta thought to himself that hauling firewood up the steep slope was no joke. It was exhausting. When he turned to check on Izumi, he was surprised to see her collecting wood with ease, as if she had already completed her share. That moment, he felt something different about her. Morikawa then asked the group if they were all fine and told them not to hesitate to speak up if any problem came up. The boys were delighted by her kind gesture, and Yuta thought to himself that Izumi and Morikawa were truly the two stars of their class. Just then, Izumi came closer to him, apologizing for making him wait. Startled, he asked her not to appear out of nowhere like that. As he looked at her more carefully, he noticed that she was sweating and realized that, in truth, she wasn't good at physical work at all. Yuta moved his hand toward Izumi, and she instinctively grabbed it, but he told her that wasn't what he meant. Instead, he took all the firewood from her hands, saying that if they didn't hurry, all the curry would be gone. As they walked together, Izumi smiled and thanked him. Both of them silently wondered what that moment really meant. She then complimented him, saying he was a genuinely good person and blessed with that nature. Eventually, the group managed to prepare something that was supposed to be curry, but it looked strange. Izumi tried to taste a little and noticed that far too many secret ingredients had been mixed in. When Yuta tasted it as well, he found the flavor absolutely awful. Quickly taking charge, he asked Murai to fetch more ingredients and water and told Morikawa to handle the spices. As he worked, Izumi and another boy watched him, wondering if he was actually good at cooking. The boy confirmed that Yuta often cooked and even made bentos sometimes. Izumi was surprised and remarked that it was really nice. At last, the curry was completed, and to everyone's relief, it turned out tasty. The boy mentioned that Yuta's quick thinking had saved the dish, and that the secret ingredient had worked out in the end. Yuta modestly replied that he had only adjusted the amounts a little himself, but was glad it turned out well. He then noticed that Izumi wasn't saying anything, and simply kept eating. Thinking she might not have liked it, he nervously asked her how the food was. She smiled and said it was really good. When he pointed out that a grain of rice was stuck on her mouth, she casually wiped it away with her sleeve. Yuta continued eating, wondering why he felt so happy about her compliment, and whether he even needed her approval in the first place. Soon the teacher called everyone together, announcing that they were about to start a recreation event hosted by Kobayashi, a treasure hunt in the mountains. Yuta grew curious about the game, while the other students seemed excited. The teacher explained that using the map as their guide, each group needed to walk together, solve puzzles along the way, and perhaps even find real treasures. She then instructed them all to set off. Yuta and his team left, and one of the boys suggested they head in a certain direction, wondering aloud about the first question. Morikawa and Murai were excited, imagining that the treasure might even be 1,000,000 yen. Yuta was stunned that they were expecting such an amount. Morikawa eagerly pointed out the path she thought they should follow, and Yuta noted how energetic the three of them were. He then wondered why Izumi wasn't with them. She replied that she was simply walking slowly, and Yuta was surprised to see her pacing that way. Once again, he felt that something was off about her. Morikawa called him over, saying they had found the first question. Yuta agreed and walked to them. The question asked what Miss Kobayashi usually did on her day off when no one was at school. The three answer options, each pointing in a different direction, were wrestling, bowling, and aerobics. Yuta grew annoyed, wondering how they were even supposed to know something like that. Murai thought carefully, treating it seriously since he believed 1,000,000 yen might be at stake. Morikawa suggested that there could be a hidden hint somewhere. Yuta muttered that there was no way they would figure it out. Just then, Izumi calmly said the answer was bowling, explaining that Miss Kobayashi had mentioned it in class the other day. The three of them were astonished and praised Izumi for remembering something from Kobayashi's class, which had always been tedious for them. Yuta also acknowledged her knowledge, while Murai admitted that without Izumi, they would have failed the very first question. The others thanked her, and Izumi's face lit up with a charming smile. Yuta, watching her, felt reassured that she seemed fine after all. With her help, they managed to answer 3 more questions correctly and continued moving forward on their treasure hunt. Morikawa mentioned that they had already solved quite a few questions. Murai added that it felt like they were almost at the end, and both of them grew even more excited at the thought of winning 1,000,000 yen. Yuta was astonished that they still had so much energy. Then he noticed that Izumi wasn't with them, so he asked the others. Morikawa replied that Izumi had gone to get some water and should have been back by now. Just then, they heard a voice asking how everyone was doing, reminding them that only 10 minutes remained, so they needed to keep moving. Yuta realized they were running out of time. Even if Izumi had gone to get water, she wouldn't have gone too far. Yet troubling thoughts began to creep in. What if she had gotten lost? He remembered her strange behavior earlier that day and couldn't shake off his unease. Clenching his fist, he said that he was really thirsty and would go get water, asking the other 3 to go on ahead without him. They agreed, and Murai told him to be careful. As Yuta walked away, he thought about Izumi, hoping she was safe, telling himself it was better to be cautious than to regret later. Finally, he found her sitting alone. Wondering what she was doing there, he asked about the water. Instead of answering, she showed him a board, pointing out that the treasure was located down below, which was why she had come there. Yuta told her that the others had already gone ahead and suggested they should catch up. He felt relieved that she wasn't lost, but then he noticed her leg and asked if she had hurt her foot. Surprised, she asked how he knew. He explained that she had been acting strangely all day and wondered why she hadn't told anyone, since it could be dangerous, and she didn't need to force herself during such a physically demanding activity. Izumi smiled faintly and replied that it was because she had really been looking forward to joining them on this trip. Yuta felt his face heat up, thinking that Izumi was truly a kind person, but then he noticed that she herself was blushing so openly, and he teased her by saying that it was a childish thing to say. Izumi grew annoyed at his words and moved as if to hit him, but he quickly apologized. After that, he crouched down and carried her on his back. Izumi apologized for troubling him, but he told her it was completely fine. She hesitated and asked if she was heavy. Yuta replied that she was so light despite eating, and even suggested that she should eat more. Izumi laughed softly, saying she had already eaten 2 servings of curry that day, and added that doing the treasure hunt with everyone had been a lot of fun. Yuta pointed out that she had gotten blisters from the brand new shoes she had been so excited to wear. Hearing that, Izumi looked down sadly, but Yuta chuckled and admitted he was only joking, remarking that she was actually very easy to read. At that moment, something clicked in his mind. Izumi leaned a little closer to him and thanked him sincerely for coming to look for her. He nodded, thinking to himself that she was the girl he couldn't bring himself to fully trust, but maybe she was actually simpler than he had assumed. He recalled the day she had offered him her handkerchief and realized that deep down, he wanted to believe in her, even if only a little. When they rejoined the others, the group finally reached the treasure safely. But all their dreams were shattered when they opened the box and discovered it contained nothing more than 10 copies of a classic problem workbook. Mirai, Morikawa, and the others were visibly disappointed. Mirai turned to Yuta and jokingly asked him to take all the books back himself. Yuta shook his head and suggested giving them to Izumi instead, but she replied that she already had one. Meanwhile, Morikawa seemed genuinely happy to see the workbooks. The next day at school, a girl went to greet Hasegawa and wished her good morning. Hasegawa was really happy and greeted her back. They both walked together, and as a boy carrying some things passed by, Hasegawa asked if the committee work had started first thing in the morning once again. The boy agreed, but mentioned that he had already finished it. Hasegawa offered to help him, and he wondered if she was really sure about that. Other students found Hasegawa very cute, saying she looked like a perfect, flawless beauty. Suddenly, she noticed some girls surrounding Rei and told them it was enough and that they were bothering him. She apologized to Rei, and he replied that it was fine, and even thanked her. Hasegawa then left, though the girls continued surrounding Rei. The students thought that Hasegawa did not seem to have any interest in him. In reality, it was completely different. In the toilet, Hasegawa was writing about Rei's scent, which she thought resembled roses. She wrote many more things, believing his smell was amazing. She thought about how he kept appearing in their class unexpectedly, which made her so happy whenever she got the chance to talk to him, especially when he smiled at her. Watching him from afar was no longer enough for her, as she had already gathered all the information she could about his school life. Now, she wanted to know more about his real and private life. For that, she decided she had to get closer to Yuta. She greeted Yuta, but he responded coldly. She realized that he was the one she needed to get close to in order to know more about Rei. She asked if Yuta had finished his work. He said only a little was left. While trying to get closer, she asked if he wanted her help in finishing it, but he refused politely. Hasegawa agreed, wondering aloud if the weather was hot and what she should do. She asked if she should close the curtains, but Yuta replied that it already felt fine to him. Hasegawa was really pissed off, thinking that Yuta had been so rude. While she was in the toilet, she bumped the door in frustration, wondering why most guys would usually be thrilled to talk to cute girls like her. Yet Yuta seemed different. From what she had seen, he should have been an easy target. Then she remembered Izumi, her rival for Rei's heart, who had also been troubling Yuta lately. Hasegawa decided she would listen in on their conversation and dig up some information. Izumi asked Yuta if he had brought his bento as well, and he agreed, saying that he had just packed the leftovers from last night's dinner. Hasegawa imagined that Izumi might act cute and start wondering what kind of food Yuta usually ate at home, especially what Rei ate, and what kind of dishes they both liked, particularly anything about Rei. Hasegawa thought this was the perfect moment for Izumi to capture the chance and bring Rei into the conversation. Instead, Izumi only mentioned that it was really nice. Hasegawa grew irritated, wondering why they couldn't follow up with anything about Rei. When Izumi asked Yuta if he had made the food by himself, Hasegawa thought there was no point in such a question. She felt that if Izumi wasn't even interested in Rei, then why bother? Izumi then asked Yuta about his favorite side dishes. Yuta started answering, but Hasegawa thought that learning about Yuta was useless to her. As Yuta explained, Izumi blushed and said that it seemed like the two of them were the same. Hasegawa was shocked to hear that. Disappointed, she returned to the toilet, realizing that she had not learned anything useful. She wondered how she ended up learning more about Yuta and Izumi instead of Rei, when all she wanted was to be with him. She began imagining the lovely things she could do with Rei and suspected that Yuta and Izumi were hiding some juicy information about him. She was certain that she would discover more next time. Meanwhile, when Yuta went back home, Rei appeared completely different from his perfect image at school. At home, he was lazy, his hair messy, and he acted weirdly. He even scratched his belly with his hand under his shirt. Yuta was surprised and said that if people at school saw him like that, they would probably die from shock. The school periods had been changed, and Yuta clearly understood that many things around him were shifting. One hot day, while he was doing some weeding in the schoolyard, Hasegawa came over to help. Yuta refused her offer, but with a sparkling face she insisted that he should let her help since they were friends. When he still denied, she reluctantly left. Some boys nearby commented that Hasegawa was really nice, while Yuta kept wondering what she was actually trying to do. Later in class, after the bell rang, Hasegawa was so exhausted from the cleaning work that she fell asleep. Yet even then, Yuta never mentioned a single thing about Rei. She realized the path to friendship with him was going to be a long one. If she wanted to get close to him, she first had to build a solid friendship. One day, when she was tired again, she suddenly caught a faint, familiar scent. But after a while, it was gone, and she realized she was missing something she always kept with her. Feeling terrible, she rushed away in distress. Meanwhile, Yuta was walking with his two friends. Murai teased him, saying that Yuta had mellowed out quite a bit, like when he helped Izumi with that piggyback ride. Yuta shouted back that it was wrong, explaining he had no choice because Izumi couldn't walk at that time. Murai joked that his phobia of women must have been cured. Yuta denied it, saying it wouldn't heal so easily and that he still didn't trust girls. Suddenly, Hasegawa appeared before them, looking worried. Murai asked if something had happened since her expression seemed strange. She replied that she had dropped something she couldn't find. When he asked what it was, she explained it was her bookmark. Murai immediately said that the three of them would help her search for it. Yuta tried to refuse, telling them not to drag him into it, but they ignored him and pulled him along anyway. As they searched, Hasegawa approached Yuta to thank him. He told her to hurry up and find it since they wanted to go home soon. At that time, he was searching on the rooftop. She thought again about how Yuta always spoke so coldly. Even after searching, nothing turned up, and Hasegawa grew deeply disappointed, wondering what she should do and whether the bookmark was really that important to her. Yuta finally asked what the bookmark looked like. She explained that it had a pressed sakura petal inside and that Rei had given it to her. Yuta gave her a sharp stare before asking if that was the reason she had been trying to get closer to him lately. She quickly denied it, but Yuta said it was fine since he was already used to such things. He turned to leave, remarking that it was rare for his brother to give a gift to someone and wondering how she had even received it. Hasegawa explained that Rei had simply picked up a petal that had landed on her head, and she later made it into a bookmark. Yuta pointed out that she had said earlier it was a gift from Rei, then told her that she was clearly obsessed with him. Hasegawa suddenly shouted for them to shut up, declaring that Rei was the only one who had ever been kind to her in the past. She became emotional and confessed that she truly loved him. Yuta was shocked by her outburst. Wiping her tears, she apologized for dragging him into her problems and said she would look for the bookmark on her own. Yuta thought that, whatever it was, he didn't owe her anything. But then he remembered Rei's crying face and confession from before. The others were still searching. Murai mentioned that the only other place Hasegawa had gone that day was the weed-pulling spot, but it didn't seem to be there either. She apologized again for troubling them and said she would continue searching alone, thinking that she had probably made the bookmark herself anyway. At that moment, she noticed Yuta rummaging through the trash. She wondered why he was digging there. He replied that the bookmark might have ended up inside. Shocked, she asked him not to go that far, but Yuta simply said that since it was important to her, he would keep looking. She still didn't understand why he was doing it. Murai explained that ever since they were children, girls who liked Rei had often used Yuta, and that was the reason he didn't trust women much. Hasegawa began to wonder if she wasn't doing the exact same thing, using Yuta just to get closer to Rei. Murai added that whenever someone was in trouble, Yuta couldn't stop himself from helping, and that he was like a walking oxymoron, outwardly cold but inwardly too kind, which often led people to take advantage of him. Together, Yuta and the other boy continued searching until Yuta finally found the bookmark. He returned it to Hasegawa and even apologized for how he had spoken earlier. Overcome with emotion, she thanked him, assuring him that it was completely fine. Yuta then left, while Murai expressed relief that the bookmark had been found. In the class, Yuta noticed that she was still keeping the bookmark with her all the time, which he thought was a seriously broken conversational habit if he had seen it before. She called out to him, saying that she was trying to learn more about Ray and kept prying things out of him while beating around the bush. Yuta ended up rubbing her the wrong way, and his mouth, eyes, and whole attitude pissed her off badly. He wondered if she was just dissing him at that point. She didn't deny it, but admitted that she wouldn't do it anymore, bowing down to apologize and mentioning that he really was a kind guy. She added that she had now understood real love meant getting Ray by herself, and that was how she would prove it. She then asked Yuta if they could be friends, but Yuta, still pissed off, denied rudely. Hashigawa reacted in shock, saying it was supposed to be such a wholesome moment. Yuta wondered if she had always been that unhinged. She only smiled, remarking that he should show that side of himself more since it might make him more popular with girls. She was certain that while it wouldn't be at Ray's level, it would still be something. Yuta questioned why she kept dissing him every 5 seconds, insisting it didn't matter because girls only ever used him, just like she did. She shouted at him to shut up since she had already said she wouldn't do it again. Then they turned to look at the other students, and she asked if Izumi was one of them. Yuta, flustered, muttered that she really was a mystery, but his face was red as he grabbed his head. Hashigawa understood what Yuta meant and called him little brother-in-law, urging him to just go and get Izumi. Yuta was left shocked, wondering what Hashigawa meant by in-law. The scene shifted to the practice day for the upcoming sports festival. As Yuta was running, Mirai told him to go even faster. Another boy remarked that it was to be expected from Yuta, calling it a total landslide. Other students were checking on things too, and they noted that even while Izumi was resting, she still looked cool. They began talking about how stylish she was. Izumi was sitting out of the main zone, so Yuta approached her, wondering aloud if that was really the best spot she could find. She saw him, but didn't say much. Yuta mentioned that it was still hot there. She agreed, and then he pointed out a spot under the shade of a tree where she could sit. She replied that flowers had taken that spot, and it would be a shame to step on them, so she would rather stay where she was. Yuta thought it was unexpected and hadn't imagined she cared about such things that much. As he was leaving, Izumi complimented him, saying he really was fast. Yuta agreed, explaining that he genuinely liked running. Just then, Hashigawa called out to him, saying she wanted to talk for a while. Yuta wondered if it was about the relay between the teams. She confirmed it was, explaining that it was the mixed-grade relay race and that she thought Yuta would be a great fit. He then asked if she had been wearing some huge, chunky case earlier. She admitted that she had learned from last time and had turned that bookmark into a necklace. She added that Yuta was truly great at running and that everyone in the class agreed. Yuta wondered when all of this had happened with her. He felt he had no reason to refuse her request for the relay race. At that moment, they heard other girls talking excitedly about Ray joining the relay race. The girls said they were going to cheer for him, even though he was on the blue team. One of them remarked that it didn't matter, she would still cheer for him anyway. Hashigawa, who was hanging on the net, overheard them and grew excited. She asked Yuta if he had heard that Ray was racing as well, adding that if Yuta joined, it would be a sibling showdown. Yuta denied any interest and started walking away. Hashigawa, stuck on the net, kept calling out for him to wait and help her, but he ignored her and left. Soon, the bell rang, and Yuta picked up his bag to leave, thinking he had done it again and wondering why he always repeated the same thing. He told himself that his only true rival was his older brother. Even though his brother had complimented him, he always lost to him and would end up shouting that he would surely win next time. Yuta thought that his brother could do anything, while he himself was just plain average with no outstanding abilities. He reflected on when it all began, when he started giving up on being number one. He remembered how, in the past, everyone always praised his brother, and how his parents told him that even if he gave his all, it was just a matter of bad luck, and it was fine to try again next time. Yuta recalled how disappointed he had been back then, and how he had said that he was fine with it. Yuta stopped midway, thinking that he would never be able to beat his brother anyway. To him, it felt like the worst trade, though he reminded himself that the one thing in which he could surpass his brother was his survival skills, the kind that made him a true survivor. Just then, he saw his brother, who asked if Yuta was heading home and suggested that they walk back together for old times' sake. Yuta, however, was afraid. afraid that he would never be the best, afraid of always being compared to his brother. He understood it wasn't entirely true, yet the fear gnawed at him. So he declined, apologizing as he claimed to have remembered something he needed to do, and asked Rei to go ahead without him. As Yuta walked away, his brother was left completely confused, and the other students looked on. Yuta, running blindly, stumbled on a stone, rolled down and crashed against the net, wondering what he was even doing and realizing that he was running away from everything. At that moment, Izumi came up to him and asked if he was fine. Still upside down, Yuta replied awkwardly that he was, though he wondered why she was there. He felt embarrassed, thinking she might have seen him fall. Izumi mentioned that the spot really did feel good. She herself had tripped there the other day, and it turned out to be so comfortable that she ended up liking it. Yuta rolled down further in embarrassment, realizing she had done the exact same thing. Izumi stood up, saying that the sunlight there was truly great. Then, as if to show him the best part, she gestured for him to come closer. Together, they looked out through a window-like opening, and she pointed out that from that spot, Yuta could even catch a bit of breeze from the fan nearby. Yuta admitted that he felt the same, and as he said it, Izumi's face turned red. She mentioned that the place really smelled nice, and that with everyone practicing for the sports festival, the atmosphere looked so good. Then she suddenly brought up the bread-eating race, wondering about it. Yuta was startled and asked if she was being serious. Izumi explained that they would get to eat a ton of bread. Yuta corrected her, saying that wasn't how it worked, and told her to just stay out of the bread-eating race. She shook her head, explaining that she had lost at rock, paper, scissors, which was why she ended up doing the beanbag toss instead. She then asked what Yuta was participating in. Yuta replied that he was doing the 100-meter run and the pushball event. He then thought about the relay race, and Izumi said that everyone was talking about how he should join. Yuta denied it, saying that he wasn't particularly fast, and besides, his brother was going to participate as well. Izumi wondered about the reason and why Yuta's brother being around meant it was a no-go. She admitted that she didn't really understand complicated things, but to her, Yuta was still Yuta. He gave it some thought, agreed silently, and thought that she really was someone different, always straightforward. He then mentioned that if he ran, he would be compared to his brother. After that, he spoke about the flower ahead, the one inside the shade, and she understood that it would eventually be moved and someone was bound to step on it sooner or later. She added that it was actually so beautiful, and when given a chance in the sunlight, its real colors would manifest. She wondered if it would grow more freely then. She called out to Yuta, saying that he would be just fine, that he sparkled while running, and that he was their best bet. Yuta gave it another thought, wondering why she was so confident and why she hadn't just said that he wouldn't be able to do it. He questioned how he could feel something so strong from her words. It was like an overwhelming happiness. He ran away, thinking that he felt strange, his chest pounding wildly. He believed that she probably hadn't thought twice about what she had said, and he was sure there wasn't any special meaning behind it, but still, he wanted to believe her words. He felt happy that she had said he was someone who wanted to live up to her expectations. Tears welled up in his eyes as he wondered about that strange feeling inside him.